Welcome back, everybody. In today's episode, we are going to talk about estimating for a little bit. We thought this would be pretty timely because we just did a free webinar inside our Landscaping Business Owners Facebook group on estimating, and we're actually going to do another one on Halloween. So if you want to get on, if you missed the first one, you can get in on that. So if you're not in Landscaping Business Owners, hop in. We'll try to get you approved before then, but we'll be doing it at Halloween at 10 a.m.
10 a.m. Central Time.
Yeah, so get that in before your trick or treat. But yeah, we just thought since, it's on our minds and it's literally the most asked question inside our Facebook group that we should maybe just go ahead and address it.
Should we mention we have a special guest? I'm sure you guys can see we have our dog.
Oh,
Martin.
Yeah. For those of you who are watching this, our dog Martin is just nosing his way in. He'll probably stand here the whole time. As long as I pet him, he's good. He might cry if I stop. So
yeah. So one of the things we want to point out that you need to create accurate estimates to ensure you're having a profit on every single job.
Yes.
And if you're not doing this, it's coming out of your pocket somewhere. So
yeah, well, the estimating is really kind of the backbone of your business because you're in business to make money, and this is how you go about doing it. So it's really something that you should get a good handle on.
Yeah, and so we're going to talk about some of the main things that you need to have inside your estimating system or whatever you want to call it.
All the stuff you've got to think about that go into a good solid estimate.
Yeah, and so the first thing is just estimating production hours, understanding your labor burden, your direct cost, forgotten costs, overhead, and then just having an overall system to, all together, just to having a system to make sure you
for your estimating.
Yep. So the first thing, like I said, is estimating production hours. And this is so important because many landscapers will go out and say, this job's going to cost $2,000, for example, but you can't go tell your guys, I need to get this job done in $2,000.
Yeah, nobody knows what that means.
No.
You probably don't even know what it means. No. And so if you have everything broken down into production hours or man hours, you'll hear us use both of those words. Then you can be like, okay, I have 20 production hours budgeted out for this job. There are two of you. So that means you have one 10-hour day to get this job done. That people can understand. They're like, okay, 10 hours or less, we got to get this job done.
Yeah. And one thing I want you to think about, it makes it easier when you start getting into these larger jobs, because if you start doing, most of us start off doing smaller jobs. But when you start getting into those $10,000, $20,000 jobs and up, it's easier to break things down because when you start looking at, okay, I have 10 shrubs and it's going to take 1 man hour or whatever it is, 1 man hour per shrub, it's 10 man hours, just give you an example there, but it just makes things easier because when you start doing these huge jobs, you can start rattling off how long it's going to take. And then this is what you pass on to your crews later on.
Well, and those jobs might take more than one day. So you can look, okay, well, we had 2 guys out for, 10 hours today. So 20 hours of this job are already used up. That means we have to get it done in whatever you have left the next day. And that helps with your job costing as well, because then when you're done with these jobs, if you don't think you made money on it, you can kind of pinpoint where you perhaps made a mistake. Because, materials are usually pretty straightforward, but if you have everything in man hours, then you can see, okay, well, these guys took more hours than I had estimated for this job. And then you can take it one step further and be like, okay, if we did go over our hours, why did we go hours? Were they lazy butting around? Did the homeowner change the job and you didn't do a change order for it? Did it rain for 3 days? Like, was there some kind of act of God? Or did you just not put enough in? You know,
there's a lot of factors that can go into it.
It can be multiple things. But if you have them in these production hours, then you can just kind of pinpoint any discrepancies to see where things might have gone awry.
Yeah. And the next thing we're going to talk about is labor burden. I want you to start thinking about incorporating labor burden because it's basically it's a taxation on labor. So it's including your FICA, your FUTA, your SUTA.
All these things you have to pay.
Yeah, your paid time off, any uniforms or boots fee or anything you give your employees extra needs to be incorporated into labor burden. Because if you're just going out and say, I'm just for simple math here, but if you're going out and estimating jobs at $10 an hour because that's what your average pay is, and you're forgetting about all this extra stuff, that $10 employee might actually be a $15 employee time you pay his paid time off and uniforms or whatever else. And you're just missing out $5 per hour on that. And it just comes out of your pocket.
Yeah, because if it's not recouped somewhere, like Scott said, it's coming out of your profits because you have to pay it because those are all bills that you have to pay. So
yeah, absolutely. The next thing is your direct costs. And these are pretty straightforward. This is just your material. So your mulch, your fabric, or whatever your material is for
all
that
the stuff
job.
that goes into that job. These are pretty easy to understand. I think that maybe the only direct cost that people sometimes would forget about or mess up is time. Time on the job. Like loading time, driving time. Those are direct costs to that job that sometimes maybe people leave out.
Yeah, that's kind of we cover in the forgotten costs. But
sorry, I'm jumping ahead. My bad.
The direct cost, like you said, is your actual material. But the thing you need to think about is like your taxes if you pay on certain materials. That needs to be incorporated and passed on to your customer.
Like delivery fees, like that. If you have plants like drop shipped to directly on site,
that should be incorporated into that as well. If you have to pay, say you have to send your guys, a couple hours away to a nursery to pick up trees or whatever, that can be incorporated in the direct cost too.
Your drive time and stuff and your fuel and all that.
Yeah, and so like Katie's talking about the forgotten time.
I'm sorry. Yep, I bumped up. Now we'll talk about things that are easy to forget about that often get left out of estimates. And that's maybe those, the stuff I was already talking about.
Yeah, so that's, Katie said, your travel time. And you have to consider there and back. And one thing to keep in mind is sometimes, depending on your area, it may take you only 15 minutes to get to the job site in the morning, but in the afternoon with afternoon traffic, it may take half hour to 45 minutes. So you have to consider that when you're taking it in and multiply it by the times or the amount of people you have going on the job.
Yeah, and it's not just time. It can be things like sod staples and marking paint, just things that are easy to forget, which might not come out to be very much on each individual job, but over the course of a year, that can really add up.
Yeah, so you have to make sure you just incorporate all these things. And one other one is like watering time. If you have to sit there and water the plants.
Oh, water them in when you're done? Yeah.
Those are just things that forget about.
Well, somebody's got to do it. Yeah, that should be in your time. Yeah.
Your loading time and unloading time. All that has to be incorporated into that job cost.
Mm-hmm.
So the next thing is your overhead, and overhead is king.
Overhead can completely eat your profits and chew you up and spit you out and turn you into a pauper. That's why I call it. That's why I say it's king, because it can turn you into a poor man.
It does. And this is something that really hurt our business. And this is why we feel it's so important, because we were showing that we're making a profit on every job when we did our job costing.
Well, if we just went by gross profit, we were like, oh yeah, we're making a pretty good, decent gross profit. We'll be fine. Wrong. End of year, no money. Where did it go?
Yep. And it was because
overhead
our overhead
ate it. That's where it went.
Our overhead was too high, and we weren't monitoring it, and it cost us big.
Yeah, well, because honestly, when we first started out, I didn't even really know about overhead or think about it. Like, I obviously knew that those bills existed because we had to pay them, but we didn't really have a good way to recover those costs. We just kind of hoped we charged enough. Yeah. Like, we threw out an estimate and we hoped for the best.
Yeah, so overhead is basically, think about it like your rent for your building or your shop.
Yeah.
Utilities, your office equipment.
If you pay your bookkeeper or if you have an attorney.
Yeah, all that stuff. Your owner salary, that all that should be incorporated in there. Any overhead vehicles. So if you have a truck that you use to for sales, that should be incorporated in there.
And for owner's salary, it's only the part that isn't, if you still work out in the field, then that time would go in your direct cost. But any time that is not out in the field.
If you're just doing sales or stuff in the office or shop, that
goes in overhead. Yeah.
And one thing to think about is if you ask questions in the free Facebook group, people say, you need to know your numbers. This is one of the numbers they're talking about. You need overhead. Yeah. So
you have to know your numbers and estimate based on numbers for your business, because overhead is one of those numbers that can really vary greatly among other businesses. And so if somebody in the group is like, oh, you need to charge this, they could have completely different overhead than you. Yep. It really depends. Yeah. We were a pretty huge business, so our overhead was way different than somebody that was just starting out.
Yep. Yeah. We had, trees in our nursery, and just the time and material to take care of that is way different than somebody who just has every brought to the shop.
Or your business is like, pushing 2 million, your overhead's a lot different than if you're still working on your first 250,000. Yeah. So it's just different.
Yep. So the next thing we're talking about is having an estimating system in general. Now, inside our Millionaire Academy, we do teach 4 different types of systems. We teach the SOARs, the single overhead recovery system, the DOORs, the dual overhead recovery system, the MORs, a multiple overhead recovery system, and the overhead or the OPPH, the overhead profit per hour system.
Yeah, and we didn't invent these. These
No.
are just common landscaping estimating systems.
Yeah.
But what we did do was turn them into easy to use spreadsheets. We have them in Microsoft Excel spreadsheets, which we actually just updated
Yeah.
because they were a little bit beefy in these spreadsheets, but we did just kind of streamline them a little bit.
Yeah, just to make it easier to flow through.
Yes. So, no, these are common estimating systems, but we've just made them a lot easier to use.
Yeah. Now, one thing just to point out is having an estimating system makes it easy so you don't forget these, like we talked about the hidden costs, the travel time. Having it line by line and go through it makes it so much easier because I remember before missing out like on a whole biofalls for a water feature.
Yeah.
I forgot the large biofalls incorporated in
That's
there.
like $800.
Yeah, and that's
We had to eat it because
Yeah,
he'd already sent out the estimate. So
we got
it
the
wasn't like
job.
you could just like put out a change order and be
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, sorry, here's this $800.
Yeah,
Nope, you messed up.
Yep,
We ate
because
it.
I had in the contract, we're incorporating a whole ecosystem pond, blah blah blah.
Yep.
I forgot it. My fault.
Well, he was doing estimates after he'd work all day, come home, help me, feed the kids and get them to bed. And then he'd be working on estimates late at night. So he was tired. So it's real easy to forget things after you've already put in like 16 hours that day.
Yeah, so this is why we have an estimating system where line by line lists everything out, and then
Yeah.
I need it. Fill it
Yeah,
in
that's
the
where
quantity,
these
so.
spreadsheets to me are really handy because they're super customizable because you can put in whatever is specific to your business. Because we have some of our members of our academy that do a lot of irrigation. And so we didn't necessarily have irrigation in there because we didn't do it, but he customized the sheet. So we had all of his stuff in there. So like we said, we just learned from Scott's mistakes of leaving things out. You really have to have this systematic approach and have it all in there so you don't make $800 mistakes.
It's key to your business. So.
Yeah.
So basically, you need to have all of these things in your estimating program or system, however you want to call it, in order to be profitable. And in order to get these estimates, you need to be marketing your business all the time.
Always be marketing.
Yeah. And one of the tools we recommend using is SendGem. SendGem makes it easy for you to market to new customers and to your existing customers.
Keep your current ones. Yeah.
Yep.
And you can stand out from the crowd because it lets you systemize and set up automatic emails and automatic thank yous. So like if you finish a job, you can send somebody brownies. It's things like that that just like set you apart from the competition.
Yeah. So like if you use Jobber in your business right now, once you close that invoice up, it'll automatically send a signal to SendGem, and SendGem's going to send out however you have it set up.
It clicks with other ones other than
Yeah, it
Jobber.
does,
That's just
yeah.
an example.
Yeah.
But if you've ever thought about even like trying SendGem, we did partner with them, and they're offering $1 million podcast listeners. Was it 1 month for $2?
Yep.
Yeah.
And $50, or I'm sorry, 50 free credits, I should say. So it's 1 month for $2 and 50
The
free
credits are what you use to like send out postcards and stuff. Like, because another thing I like about them is if you say just want to like target homes that specifically have ponds or big decks or something, you can pick out those homes and send marketing only to them. You don't have to send out like a big huge blast to an entire neighborhood where you might be marketing to people that aren't your ideal customer.
Yeah. So like if you've used EDDM, Every Door Direct Marketing, you basically have to send out a huge blast to the whole neighborhood. With this, you can just send it to certain people, fine-tune it. That's what's awesome about it. You can hyper target the people you want. So
right. So if you ever had any interest in SendGem, just like we said, the that first month for $2 is just for our podcast listeners. And so if you hit that link, you can check that out.
All right.
You ready for? I do. I've got a pod deck question for Scott. Ooh, would you rather give up all drinks except for water, or give up eating anything that was cooked in an oven?
Interesting question. Can you repeat that again?
Would you rather give up all drinks except for water, or give up eating anything that was cooked in an oven?
I guess I can give up oven. Like
What?
Goodbye without having an oven.
You don't want to give up your nightly cocktails. So that's what I'm hearing. Because I'm like, I don't know, maybe I would be okay with just drinking water, but I like to eat brownies and things that go in ovens. So I don't know.
Well, there's other ways to make it. So
that's true. That's true. You have your little green egg thing.
Yeah, green egg.
That is like an oven-ish or smoker.
Instapot, all that stuff. So there's a lot
so
of
here you'll find the workaround. So you're gonna literally have your cake and eat it too, or drink it too. I don't know. All right.
All right, guys. Just a quick reminder, don't forget to join us for our estimating webinar on October 31st at 10 a.m. Central Time.
Yeah, and that one's just a free one inside of the Landscaping Business Owners Group. So if you're not in there, if you hop in, we'll try to get you approved before then. But we do have a little bit of a backlog of people right now.
We actually hired somebody to help get people in. So
we actually try to keep riffraff out. Yeah. So that's why it does take a little bit for the approval process. So.
Yep. And don't forget to try out SendGem.
Yeah, if you've ever been interested, I don't think you can go wrong with that, trying it for $2. Yeah. So at least see what it's about. So.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us today. Have a great day.